let us know in the Q&A section. I think we've already got a few coming through as well. So if you have got any questions, make sure you use that feature, and we'll get Sophie to answer those for you as well. We've got some great talks coming up next week as well. Just head on over to our website, the Springpod website, where you can book yourself in for more sessions for next week. And like I mentioned before, if you've missed any of the previous ones, and we've had some great ones as well, make sure you head on over to our website and you can just sign up and you can catch them all on demand for free. And you can have a look back at those, and you can also book yourself in for some sessions that we've got coming up next week as well. And the schedule is also on our website as well, so if you want to have a look at those, then definitely do. But I think we'll get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session of Learn Lounge with me, Joe. Learn Lounge is the new initiative by Springpod, where we bring you influencers, explorers, entrepreneurs, and many more to tell you about their inspirational careers stories. Excuse me. These incredible speakers are telling you their top tricks, tips, and life lessons to help you forge your own path in life. So we've had some incredible speakers, including ex-England international cricketer Monty Panesar, former professional footballer, Paul Robinson, international speaker Hayley Melender, and many others. So like I said, if you missed any of those, you can catch them on demand via the Learn Lounge website. And just a few pointers before we start. The talk should last about 30 to 40 minutes, including time for the Q&A as well. Please do ask questions to our guests. They'd love to answer them. So use that Q&A feature. I know some of you have already been sending in your questions as well. And remember to tag us on social media with the hashtag LearnLounge. And finally, we'll be raising money for the Children's Trust. So please do donate. We'll give you the link to that at the end of today's talk. But it's the moment you've all been waiting for. This morning, we're joined by BAFTA-winning filmmaker and wildlife cinematographer, Sophie Darlington. Sophie's resolve to pursue a career in this field was strengthened after a chance meeting with two of the BBC Natural History Unit's finest during a trip to Africa in her teens. Now, it was definitely a eureka moment for Sophie when she realised that she could be pursuing a career that combined her passion for nature, adventure, and photography. I mean, what more could you possibly ask for? Since then, Sophie has been part of the core crew for many landmark wildlife series, including Our Planet on Netflix and Dynasties on the BBC, which was phenomenal. We're excited to have her on Learn Lounge today to talk to us about her successful career and also share some important lessons that she's learned along the way. Sophie, welcome to Learn Lounge. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Joe. Hello, everybody. It's really lovely to be here. Slightly odd, as I think we all know at this stage, but it's really nice to be here. Thank you for asking me to come on.
I suppose it's quite a different location and setting for you. You're not exactly used to being stuck indoors all day.
I'm sitting on the floor of my living room. I should be in Svalbard filming polar bears. So yeah, it is a little different.
Oh, amazing.
But essentially, yeah, I'm a long lens wildlife camera woman. And I thought I'd just kind of let whoever's watching know what that is, if you don't already. Forgive me if you know. Basically, that means I sit really far away from things, usually like a cheetah or a bird, and I hide myself so the animal doesn't see me, so they behave really naturally. And then I can capture their behavior. So as jobs go, it's slightly strange. It's not particularly normal. And as Joe said, it started with a passion for nature, for life, with an adventure. As a child, I would love just being out in nature. I have no formal education other than I went to school, obviously. I tried really hard not to, but that didn't work out. But I left school with very little in the way of academic achievements. But that's because I realized I learned best from actually doing things. I apprentice. When I was 18, as Joe said, I went out to Africa and I met a wildlife film crew, which was an incredible moment. And it kind of made me realize that's what I wanted to do, and I set my path. It took me 5 years to actually learn how to become a wildlife camera person, 5 years to actually even start operating a camera. So it wasn't straightforward. And
when you talk about your time in Africa, and that was a total chance meeting, would you say that? Yeah, would you say that if that hadn't have happened, you wouldn't be, as inspired as you were today? Or would you say that, you were passionate for it that much that, you still went and did it anyway?
That's a really great question. I have no way of knowing. I think I wanted to be at that stage, most probably, I was thinking about being a lighting designer because light has always interested me, and theatre and set design. But also I could have quite happily gone and worked in, animal conservation. I sort of knew roughly, but I didn't quite know that this job existed before I went to Tanzania. And when I met those guys from the natural history unit, it was that light bulb, like, oh my goodness, that is what I want to do. And I asked them if they'd give me a job, and they immediately said, no, obviously. And they did tell me to go to college, which I ignored because I know that wasn't my way in. But it is other people's way in.
What made you so interested about wildlife and nature? Because quite a lot of people, they have something, from really early on, their parents were into it or something, or people tend to have that, trigger point for them where they think, what, that really interests me. What was that point for you?
I think I was really lucky. My parents travelled a lot as a kid. I grew up in Iran. I grew up in Ireland. I grew up in England. I'm English, but I have an Irish accent. I'm reverse diaspora. I grew up in the countryside. I grew up with an Irish wolfhound. I spent as much time outdoors as I could, although my brothers would most probably not agree with that. I think that I've always loved just being in nature. It's not so much, some people love dissecting worms or, boiling birds to get their skulls. That's not me. I love light. And I love places and behavior of animals. So I'm very happy to sit, which is lucky. It's convenient because I do that quite a lot. Sit and watch for days and months. So yeah, it started, I think, when I was really young, but just being outdoors a lot, forced outdoors, actually.
Because that's the important part as well, the patience. You say that you could, sit there for days, hours, months, working towards a point. And I think that, especially with what you do, you must have, everyone knows that you've got that long waiting time to get that shot right. Is it worth it in the end?
Oh my goodness, of course it is. Otherwise you wouldn't do it. I mean, I always correct people when they say you're really patient. I think it's blind optimism. I wake up every morning and go, I'm going to get this. We're going to get this. It's a team. By the way, it's not just me. There's a huge team of people, not necessarily in the field, but in order to get you where you get. And I know that we should be talking about, how do you get to where I am, sitting out there for days, sitting in a hide, waiting for a bird to turn up or for a lion to do something, which if anybody knows anything about lions knows that happens quite rarely. Certainly in Dynasties, I think we did definitely testify that, lions do sleep 20 out of 24 hours easily. And I chose the route of apprenticing, which was incredibly lucky. I got to go in as a camp manager to a guy called Hugo van Lauwijk, who was married to Jane Goodall. I don't know if you've heard of Jane Goodall. She's the world's most famous primatologist. She studied chimps. She was the one who revealed that they use tools. And her husband, ex-husband, was a guy called Hugo van Lauwijk, a National Geographic photographer. And he was the one who captured all that incredible chimp behavior way back in the 60s and 70s. And he moved to the Serengeti and he needed a camp manager. So when I started filming, I actually wasn't doing anything other than making coffee and helping order vegetables in triplicate. I definitely didn't go near a camera for the first couple of years. I watched a lot and I learned. As I said, that's how I learn. That's how I get along. But a lot of people, when I met the BBC crew, they said, go to film school. And you can get in through film school. There's some incredible courses. There's now, which there weren't when I was learning, specific wildlife filmmaking courses, Joe, which are absolutely brilliant. The University of the West of England has a great course, the National Film and Television School, the University of Cumbria. They've all got incredible wildlife media courses. I will say that their competition is fierce and there is no guarantees of a job at the end. You've got to have that really genuine passion and interest. But there's some phenomenal courses out there which will set you on the right path if that's something you're looking or are thinking you might be interested in doing. So straight film school, film or media courses, or a specific wildlife media course.
Let's talk about filmmaking then as a career. What sort of things should people know about it? I mean, people often say, you know, for example, I'm going into journalism, and I've had everyone my whole life tell me, if you're in it for the money, you're in the wrong profession.
Oh yeah,
you know, you've got to be in it for the love of it.
Yeah, that people don't do this job to make money. This is it's not. And by the way, those 10 minutes at the end of the show, which make us they tend to make it look quite glamorous. It really, really isn't. It's very tedious at times. So in the Dynasties, John and I, the other main cameraman on Dynasties Lions, we said the one thing we're not going to do is say how hard this is, because we really truly believe we have the best job in the world. We love our job so much. It can be dull, it can be tedious, you can be away from your friends and family, you can not work for months. I'm a freelancer, which means that I get approached to work now, finally, 30 years later, people come and ask me to do a job. But when you start, it can be really, really tough. Financially, it can be really, really hard. So you're absolutely right. You don't do this for the money.
Would you say as well that you're the type of person who could not ever have the office 9 to 5? You know, you quite like the fact that you don't know where work's coming from. It's unpredictable, and you just don't know what each day is going to bring you.
No, absolutely not. That's really difficult. I have to say that kind of like you never quite know when things are happening. It's not easy, actually. It's not easy. And I have done a 9 to 5. I've got a 19-year-old now. But when he was little, it was very, very hard to film, as you can imagine. So I got a job running a tiger conservation charity at ZSL, Zoological Society of London. And so I actually did have an office job, which I was very proud of. But it did drive me slightly potty, if the truth be told.
What sort of things would you want the people watching who are, you know, really seriously considering going into a career like this? What piece of advice would you give to them at the moment?
There's a lot of advice. I mean, right now you've got a brilliant chance to do your research, right? You've got an amazing. People often write and they say, can I come and carry your bags? And you know, can I come on a shoot with you? Well, if you think about what we do at all, you'll realize we mainly do it solitarily. You know, we're on our own. We usually do it in a foreign country. I think that's all going to change. It's going to be really interesting to see how we come back after COVID. But I would say that you've got a great opportunity right now to look at films, find out what kind of films you love, who makes them, you know, who are the people, who are the camera people, who are the production houses, so that when you go looking for work, someone mentions, you know, Vanessa Berlowitz, Alistair Fothergill, you know, Simon Blakely, you know who these people are, because that shows passion and interest. So you've got to, this is a great time to, you know, there's some incredible wildlife available on Netflix, on the BBC, on Nat Geo right now. I think Our Planet is on YouTube for free now. You don't even have to have Netflix. All the Dynasties, The Hunt, you know, they're all up there, all the amazing shows. So you've got an amazing opportunity to do your research right now.
How often
there a bit?
No, it was fabulous. It was fabulous. What sort of challenges are you facing, you know, in the job, obviously prior to COVID-19, from, you know, the start of a shoot, from finding work to whilst you're on it? What sorts of challenges are you having to face there, and how are you getting over them?
I think that, I mean, I'll come to that slightly later on, some of that, but I think that there are many challenges. There's a lot of logistics, there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I sort of think that people who want to be in this industry really, really want to be in this industry. You sort of like, the passion is real. I joke about the time when someone who was washing my hair with gloves on he asked what I did, and I said I was a wildlife camera person, and he was like, oh my God, I want to do your job. And I genuinely went, I would love to see you do my job, because you're washing my hair with gloves on. And I'd love to see you in a hide for 10 days, not washing at all. So you've got to, I think that you've got to, as I say, I'll come back to that later, but you will be away from your friends and your family for a really long time, Joe. You'll be freelancer, so no guaranteed cash. And it's not for everyone. But one of the things I wanted to make a point about was people seem to think it's for able-bodied people only, and it's not true. It's for everyone. I met the most amazing drone pilot the other day who's entirely operating from a wheelchair. And there are many different roles in this industry that are not camera roles that you can do with so many different skills. You've just got to have that passion for nature. So right now in the industry, there's a real dearth. If anybody wants a hot tip how to get into the industry, get in doing production, because there are not, it's an incredibly specialized job right now. But the people who are organizing the shoots, who are doing the logistics, who are the planners, the absolute heart of what we do, they're the ones sitting a year working with the producers a year before, sorting everything out. And it's less glamorous, but it's absolutely as important. Glamorous is a stupid word. Sorry, I apologize. It's less, you're less out of the country, you're less uncomfortable, most probably. But, you know, wildlife filmmaking isn't just camera people. It's the editors, it's the people who deal with the kit, it's the directors, it's all the people who do the grading, the post-production, the sound, and then the production staff, the production managers. There are so many different roles. So, you know, it is for everybody if you have an interest. That's got to be at the heart of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just talk about the routes into the job. So we've got the people who are watching now, you know, we've got university graduates, secondary school students, people in college, all sorts. So what would be your perhaps recommended route? Although it might be slightly different to the one that you had, because you said, you know, you ignored the advice of the BBC team, and you've managed to do fantastically.
I'm really lucky, because there was when I was doing it, when I started 30 years ago, there was these sort of people who were living, there still are people who were living out in the field. That's much less so now. So as I say, you can do wildlife filmmaking courses, you can do straight film or media courses, which will give you that essential technical knowledge, which is so invaluable. And you can also go in through, a lot of people have got into the industry through studying zoology and biology, and then they jump in as researchers into productions, on productions. And then once you're a researcher, you often then get sent out on shoots, and that's when you can learn to use a camera. So do you know what I mean? You can kind of come in from different ways. You can also, many of my friends, some of the best camera people out there, started off by volunteering for people like the RSPB. They have the most phenomenal talent coming out of the RSPB. And or you can work in a kit house as a you can learn about the equipment. Having the technical knowledge is also great. As I say, there's so many, there isn't one route in, but what there has to be is the genuine passion for it. Because if it isn't, there's just too much competition. But if you're good enough, there's plenty of room for you in here.
And let's talk about one of your, amazing projects.
I think
Dynasties.
We're going to show a clip, are we?
Yes, let's take a look at a clip from Dynasties.
As they mature, young males begin to explore the boundaries of the pride's territory. Red has ventured out alone. And blundered straight into the middle of the hyena clan. He's trapped by over 20 of them. The pack tries to wear him down. This number of hyenas could kill him. It's impossible to fight them all at once. He can't keep them at bay for much longer. He's tiring fast. His ally, Tartu, has heard the commotion. Now the odds have changed. Even for 20 hyenas, a pair of male lions is too much to take on. Red is lucky.
Oh, I love those lions.
That's
It's nice
just,
to see
that
them
is just,
again. We spent a
yeah.
year and a half with them.
That is just unbelievable. I mean, that's had what 46 million views on YouTube. That video, 46 million views, and that is we're watching your handiwork there.
Not just mine. I was so lucky on Dynasties. There was an amazing crew of camera people, and I was working with John Aitchison on that. And I'm just going to take you through that morning, actually, Joe, because it was a beautiful morning. When you work, you have to like getting up early, by the way. At the minute, I'm getting up at dawn and getting out for a couple of hours walk every morning, just because that's what I love to do. And that's what we do as wildlife filmmakers. You work very long hours. There's no overtime, just noting that. But we'd got up pre-dawn and we'd left camp, and John had gone off looking for some lions, and I'd gone off, and I heard this noise, the kerfuffle, and I could see that Red was very close to where a hyena den was. So I called John on the radio. So we actually had 2 cameras on that, which was an incredible advantage for the sequence. And he'd obviously been up to no good in the night. And the hyenas, can I just say that hyenas are very much maligned, and they are one of my absolute favorite animals. They are genius animals. I'm allowed to say they're badasses. They are totally brilliant. And so he'd been up to no good. And you can really see how scared he was. His eyes, his pupils were immense. Those hyenas would have killed him, absolutely. And I suspect I think he'd killed one of their cubs before we'd got to them. We don't know. But his absolute relief when Tatu came in, it was the most amazing morning. And it's a very precious moment, actually. So I was really stunned when I saw that 46 million people. I was looking at it the other day. I was like, what? Usually you kind of like get 1 million and you're really happy. It's like, yes, take that, Joe Wicks.
Because it seems like these, especially in recent times, these, beautifully shot and well crafted nature documentaries they're just obsessed over by everyone. You know, I mean, even when David Attenborough went on stage at Glastonbury, people my age, you know, early teens and I'm not early teens anymore, God, early 20s, should I say? You know, it's really proving popular. I mean, how far are you? I mean, physically distant speaking, from what we're looking at, because I know you mentioned your long lens, and how
I
far
am
away are we looking?
Well, just firstly, David Attenborough, everybody should be just like, respect. He's a legend, he's one of the most amazing people. He's done so much for our industry. So how far away are we? Long lens is the clue. Absolutely. You don't want to be close. So the lens, which is, I use 50 to 1,500, which gets you pretty close. So I would like to be no closer than 20, maybe 30 meters away, which means you can actually cover behavior. We were very lucky with these lions. They're very bomb proof. They're very chilled out with us. We know them as characters. So we know they're used to us. They see us in the cars. They don't see it. We're sort of like annoying moving trees. Everywhere you go in film, you have different situations, but you don't want to get close. They would love to come and lie under the car and be, trumping zebra all day up into the car and annoying you. But actually, we try and keep them far away because they're much better off doing their own thing.
And I just wanted to ask you as well. You might have been asked this before, but it's something that's always fascinated me. Is for people, like you who work on these amazing shoots. You get to witness some really quite heartbreaking moments as well. How do you get over the ethical side of not stepping in? Because it must be for me personally, it would be really tough for me to sit there and watch something play out, but that you can't, because that's life, that's nature. How difficult is that for you?
You've nailed it. I mean, obviously it's impossible I think in this Dynasties, spoiler, by the way, everybody, but obviously we lost 3 of the pride due to poisoning. And actually we were then allowed to call in the authorities the minute, we had found them. The authorities were called in, and people, you do engage. When it's usually brought on by people, you absolutely can. When it's nature doing what nature does, you can't be a bunny hugger about it. You just got to let it happen. As much as we would love to anthropomorphize and make that about us, it's not about us, it's about them.
Absolutely.
So it's when we're working as well, often you're just so busy because you're having to follow the behavior, to keep focus, to anticipate the next behavior, and experience plays a huge part when you're filming. So that would be another tip about people who would actually want to be camera people, is it doesn't matter what you're filming with, get out there and tell your story and learn to anticipate the behavior, because the more experience you have, the more valuable you'll become. It's about how do things go together, but it's a whole new session, Joe, that's a different session. But yeah, so along the way, there's been some life lessons, which I've learned. See the way I've read that across the top of the thingy.
Smoothly done.
Yeah. So I think it's really hard. Genuinely, it's really, really difficult. There have been times where I've been absolutely devastated, but you just have to remember it's not about you, it's about them and what they do. And actually, another life lesson I can add to this is that if anything lives in the moment, it's nature. They just get on with it. So this slide I took this with my iPhone, which is phenomenal because usually they don't take very nice pictures.
Do you really?
Yeah, it's in Antarctica. I was down filming on Disney Plus at the minute. There is a show called Penguins, and I was part of a great crew that filmed that.
Wow.
It's a children's film. It's really delightful. It's got some funny bits in it. I really love it. And I got to spend a month down there. And yeah, you don't have a career, you have a life. I really believe in that. If you're lucky, and I know not everybody can be, and there have been times when I haven't been as well, but you'll find a career that really fulfills you emotionally as well as monetarily. And I found a line of work that's never going to make me a millionaire, but it fulfills me entirely. And I've had such adventures. So concentrate on your career, concentrate on your life and your career, as opposed to, you know, make it about something that matters for you. That would be number one. Number two, that's charm, by the way. I love charm. Charm was bomb-proof. She couldn't give two hoots where I was. She knew that we were never going to get out of the car. If we had, we would have scared her, because they're scared of people. She was the most gentle, beautiful lion I've ever worked with. And that's sort of how not fitting in. When I left school, I couldn't work out what I was going to do. I couldn't work out how I was going to, you know, by not going to university. But, you know, I worked in a shop for a year. I worked doing interior decorating. I worked in animation. I worked on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is an obvious route into wildlife filmmaking. But I had no idea what I wanted to do. And it's sort of, in a way, I've made this job work for me. And also by being a mum, you know, I've managed to make it sort of balance out. So if you don't fit in, don't panic about it. You know, I think that you know, you don't even know. I think in 20 years' time, there will be jobs that we didn't even imagine existing. So don't panic too much. And also don't think there has to be one career. For me, I've had loads of different careers, but I've always come back to the camera work. That's been my passion, if that makes sense. Yeah. When an opportunity arises, and it scares you. This happens, I think, pretty much every job I've ever gone on, Joe, I've been terrified, genuinely, that I'm not going to be able to do it, that it's imposter syndrome. I think we all suffer from that, that I'll mess it up, I won't be good enough, the behavior won't happen. And you know what? That actually is the case. Often you'll go, and I've been on shoots for a month where nothing has happened. We've come home with nothing. But if you don't go out and give it a go, you're never going to experience anything. So if it scares you, you know, go ahead and do it. I mean, obviously don't be ridiculous, but go ahead and do it. And then you might end up like me. This was one of the most amazing opportunities or moments of my life. I was in Alaska filming bears, and we would go out every day on foot to film grizzly bears that can be up to 10 foot tall, massive, massive wild brown bears, and they're fishing salmon, so they're pretty unconcerned about you. And we went out with guides who worked without guns and worked without bear spray, because they were absolutely brilliant at what they did. They understood bear behavior unlike anyone. And we went out. They had marine flare. I don't know, do you know what a marine flare is? It's a sort of it's like a really big candle. Yeah, that was pretty much it. And we were sitting on the beach waiting for the bears to turn up, and this wolf just came out of that woodland behind and trotted straight up, like literally straight up, and his eyes were at my eye height, and he had the most piercing yellow eyes, and he stopped about a meter away, and he just looked at us, and it was every single, like all the hairs on my arms were like, it was amazing. And he just, I mean,
thinking about it now is giving me a bit.
It was,
you know, I can just imagine it.
It was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. But I was really nervous about going and filming bears. But of course, what happens is you get there and the guides are incredible. They know what they're doing, and you begin to learn the behavior. And now I've filmed bears on a number of occasions, and I really enjoy filming brown bears. So that was, yeah. So that kind of leads me to adapt, be tenacious. That sort of really, you know, there's going to be really tough times, and we're all going through that right now. But if you don't have the really tough times, you won't appreciate the good times. And it's something I repeat to my son a lot. You've got to fail. He hates it. He's like, do I have to? Like, yeah, you do. You have to fail in order to succeed. You've got to go on that roller coaster. You've got to have the ups and the downs. So be tenacious, actually, and build up that resilience if you can. You know, take the knocks. The knocks are there to serve you. They'll make you stronger, and maybe that's why I enjoy what I do a bit as well, if that makes sense. That was a really nice cheetah as well. I really liked that cheetah. She was very sweet.
Oh, we got. I think we're on to questions now, but honestly, Sophie, thank you so much. It's such an incredible story. And the things that we've seen, obviously, that you've achieved have just been phenomenal. And I think as well, you know, when you look at the content that gets put out, it's quite often, less so now, I think, because there's that, I think, a huge appreciation more for wildlife and nature documentaries in the last few years. But I don't think they really were, you know, as big of a thing as they are now, you know, what, 20 odd years ago maybe. So I think that appreciation for your work has, you know, has come on leaps and bounds, especially with the time. So you've honestly achieved so many amazing things, and the passion that you've got as well obviously shines through. And I think it would be safe to say that you wouldn't be where you are now without that driving passion that you've got. So thank you so much for speaking with us today. Let's move on to—
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's a team, by the way. I'm really sorry, just to say that we wouldn't—
of course,
it's such an immense team of people, which is great news for those who want to get into it, because there's a massive team who all play really important roles.
More roles for—
any questions,
there.
And by the way, no time more important than right now for nature. I think we're all feeling it. It's like I've never listened to a robin singing with so much love in my heart. So, you know, it is right now is the time for nature. And let's, you know, it's a great chance to hit that reset button.
Absolutely.
When we go back in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, let's kick off with some questions. Guest 43 has asked, what's your top tip while filming or photographing wildlife?
I think get on eye level would be one of my favorites. You often see people when they're filming, they kind of like, you know, they're looking down. If they're, you know, if they're away, they're not engaging with the animals. So make sure that you always, you know, think about where you are in respect to the animal. If it's a small animal, get really low, and also always give room for the animal to breathe. So if I'm going this way, if I'm going that way, loads of room in front of me. Yeah. So make sure you leave room for an animal to travel into. And if you're filming, cut your own stuff. Learn how just a shot like this, a mid shot, is, you know, where an animal is just sort of like, here you go, there's an animal. Oh, hello. There we go. There's an animal. That's a mid shot. Okay. It's the closest I'm going to get to an elephant for a while. That's a close up. And then that's a wide shot. Make sure you get all of them, because you can't tell a story without it. There you go. Beautifully illustrated with my friend, the wind-up elephant.
Love it. Have you, I guess 338 has asked, have you ever been attacked or threatened by an animal?
I live in London, Joe.
So I suppose getting on the tube is enough of that.
I'm about to say people are much more dangerous than animals. I'll take a line any day of the week.
Has that ever actually happened though? Have you ever had that on a shoot where, you know, that they've ever got a bit too close, or, you know, you thought, oh my God, something could really happen here?
I've had a number of things, but actually I'm sort of rely on the fact that usually if you're doing your job right, they don't know you're there, or they're not bothered by you. If they're reacting aggressively towards you, I would suggest that's maybe you not doing your job very well. I have been thwacked by a buffalo in a car, but that was in the middle of a hunt. And, you know, the odd thing has happened. You get bitten by stuff. I mean, I've been 30 meters up a tree in the Amazon and bitten by at least 98 different types of mosquito. You know, I've had bees swarming through the car. So I ended up looking like an extra from Star Trek. You know, I've trodden on snakes. I've done stuff. But as a rule, I think if we're doing our job right, you don't. And I've had amazing moments where when they're ignoring you and you feel like you're part of what they are, you know, there's something, as I say, it's a pretty good job.
Because it's seeing them in, you know, to use the cliche, in their natural habitat, you know, so you want to get the best behavior out of them. Guest 215 has asked, did you have any filming or photography experience prior to your job role?
I had obviously picked up cameras. Yes, absolutely. I had been taking stills, which I don't really do anymore. I really love what I do. For some reason, I've just found my mojo on that. But Absolutely. I kind of thought I hadn't, and then I look back and I absolutely see that I took stills from when I was really quite young. So yeah, a love of light translating to taking pictures. Yep. And there's no excuse now. Yeah, sorry.
No, sorry. No excuse.
There's no excuse now not to film because cameras are so cheap. And, everybody can get a gimbal, a really simple thing and make it go along. So it's before it used to cost us like, one of the things to not being a wildlife camera person was that the kit was so expensive. But now you can actually pick up secondhand, glass and lenses for really not that much money, or borrow them. Or if you go on one of these courses, you get the opportunity to work with all of their kit.
Guest 884 has asked, the film industry is notorious for being male dominated. Did you find any extra challenges as a woman entering into the industry?
It's one of my pet peeves that I think that we are, I think that there is a lack of diversity, that any industry would benefit from more voices, right? It makes sense. Include more people, you get a better end product. So I think the industry is changing, which is great. And it has been changing for quite some time. There's not that many camera women. I think that's because initially, the most we thought we were rubbish at growing beards and we couldn't carry stuff. Certainly the camera women I know carry more stuff than most of the lads do. Not me. I'm an absolute, carry my stuff, please, help yourself. Yeah, it is quite male dominated. It's becoming less so. In production, there's a lot of women. In the craft end of it, there are less. Certainly that's something I'm working on to try and I'm working on an amazing National Geographic project right now called Queens, which hasn't started shooting, but it will come out in 2023, maybe, who knows. And it's a look at female power in nature, and our crew is about lifting women. So we've got some incredible young women that we're lifting up and mentoring for the project, and also in country diversity, which is another one of my passions that we need to be leaving more there, but that's a whole other thing.
And we've just got time for one more question, if I may, from guest 505. Just tell us about that BAFTA-winning moment for you. What did that feel like? You strike me as the sort of person who doesn't really like to talk about it much, but you are a BAFTA award-winning.
It was for a team. It was for an amazing show I worked on that I'm incredibly proud of, called The Hunt, and it didn't get enough love, I think, because everybody thought it was about killing, but it just wasn't. It was about strategy, and I was really lucky to be part of an absolutely exemplary team, incredible group of people. And the three of us, we were sitting there and we genuinely thought that we weren't winning, and so we'd maybe weren't really paying attention, and we certainly hadn't got any speeches. And it was myself and Jamie McPherson and Doug Anderson, two incredible camera people, and there was many others that weren't there. And it was just a lovely thing to just go up and actually say thank you for everybody, because it's not just about us. You just couldn't do it without everybody else. So of course it was absolutely brilliant. I was delighted. And then I got home and my brother had I'd left it there, and I went away, and every day he stuck Post-its on it. and yeah, abused it, made it, dissed it a bit. So I was brought back to ground very quickly.
And that would be the jealousy. That would be the jealousy.
It is actually, because he doesn't have one, Joe. Ha!
No. Just one more question from me. Do you ever feel humbled or overwhelmed by nature when you're out shooting?
Every day. Genuinely, I'm not messing you. It's what makes me tick. It's what makes me happy, and it's why I do what I do. It is. To be in nature, whether that's at the minute I'm walking on Hackney Marshes in the mornings and just watching the odd kestrel going over. I'm humbled daily, hourly, for my whole life until I die. Yes.
Honestly, fabulous. Sophie Darlington, thank you so much. You've been a fantastic speaker. No, honestly, I've been, if I had the rest of the day, I could just sit here and just talk to you all day. It's been absolutely fabulous. And the amount of questions that we've had come through as well has just been such great numbers. So we'll see if it's okay with you. What we'll try and do is we'll try and get a couple of them to you. Just see if you'd be happy to answer a few more questions.
Absolutely. I mean, I will. If I have a minute, absolutely, for sure. And there's stuff on my website, Joe, about how to get into wildlife filmmaking and stuff as well, if it's of any use. And if people have show reels, as long as they're under 2 minutes, I'll look at them. If they're anything over fabulous. 2 minutes, I won't.
No, you need to get people's attention within 120 seconds.
That's it. You got it.
Sophie, you've been absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
And as I mentioned earlier, the Children's Trust, as well as the charity that we're working to support, the childrenstrust.org.uk/donate is the link there. If you can help, please donate as little or as much as you possibly can. It's a fantastic charity for rehabilitating children with brain injuries. Don't forget to tune in to our next session, which is on Monday, the 4th of May at 2:30 p.m, where we'll be talking to F1 engineer Joe Sturdy, who will shed some light on the different career pathways in this industry. Thank you all so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.